Hello and welcome back to the Mindset Project podcast. My name is Lewis Conde and my aim is to give you the tools to develop and improve your mindset. By drawing on my own experiences as a competitive swimmer, as well as the opinions and experiences of other incredible individuals, I hope to expose you to an alternative way of thinking. And in doing so, I hope that inspires some sort of personal growth. I believe that through mindset development, we can strive physically, mentally and emotionally. I hope you're all doing well, staying positive and staying healthy. So let's get on to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Project podcast. On this week's episode, we have another guest, and I'm delighted to say that I got to speak with the incredible Erika Beeson. Erika is from the United States, and as you'll soon find out, Erika is a speaker, a life coach, and now an author. In this episode, we delve deep into the world of spirituality and discuss how we can use our own inner wisdom to lead a life of fulfillment. This is a very relevant issue of the day when many people have started questioning what makes them truly happy on the back of the COVID pandemic. We talk about how many people these days are following the recipe of someone else, and this leads us to become unfulfilled because it isn't our own unique recipe. When we, follow someone else's recipe or those rules to happiness, those are that person's rules. They're the rules that make them happy, and they're not necessarily the rules that are going to make you happy. And if this is you, someone who might be in a 9-to-5 or in a corporate job, but you just feel like something is not feeling right, then this episode will definitely be for you. This is a great episode and at times deep, but I hope you really enjoy it, so let's get on to it. Okay, so welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Project podcast. On this week's episode, I have another guest, and I'm extremely delighted to say I have Erika Beeson. And Erika is a speaker, she's a life coach, and she's now an author with her new book, The Renewal of You, which came out last year. And on this episode, I kind of just want to delve into, trying to find your own path in life, working on your inner wisdom, your intuition, and all that sort of thing. So welcome, Erika.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so we're going to just get started with, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your sort of journey, and how you sort of came into life coaching and writing your book?
Absolutely. Happy to. Just kind of off the cuff, I am a single mom at this time with one daughter who's 13. She's headed into being a teenager. So that's fun to navigate. We currently live in the States in Utah. And we're just, getting ready to enjoy the outdoors. Spring is finally hit, and I am by far addicted to being in the mountains, have been ever since I was a kid. That is where I find my peace. That is where I find my joy. And hiking or trail running is kind of where I feel like I process my thoughts the best and where I'm able to sort of tune out all of that outside noise. So that's just a little bit about me in my current state. Now, my journey into personal growth started probably 5 or 6 years ago, actually. So in my mid 30s, I would say. And basically what happened is I just felt like ever since I was a young adult, I was you're kind of told, whether it's by your parents or authority figures in your world, whether that's teachers or mentors, religious leaders, you're kind of like given these ideas of maybe what life should look like, all the shoulds.
Yeah.
And I tried out a bunch of different paths. I tried out several different paths because the first one I tried didn't quite work for me. The second one I tried didn't quite work for me either. And so it's just been kind of this create your own adventure, some lessons learned harder than others. But really, what drove me to dive deep into my personal journey was I just kind of got sick of what felt like failing. I felt like I was failing over and over. And I'll put a hard stop on that word because I actually don't subscribe to failure anymore. To me, it's just learning. It's you tried something out and it didn't work and you learned.
Yeah.
It's just like I assimilate it because I watch my daughter, what am I going to wear today? Like trying on a different outfit. It's like, okay, you tried that shirt on today, doesn't feel quite right. Try something different. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you failed at getting dressed today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite acronyms is FAIL is first attempt in learning. And that's
Mm,
That's one I think is a good
I
one.
love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't appreciate that word failure, but that's really kind of the I guess feeling that sort of pushed me into this deep dive into I've been listening for so long to what everyone else has been telling me should work for me, right? Like, oh, you should have X, Y, and Z, and that's going to make you happy, and you should have A, B, C, and that's going to bring, abundance and joy into your world. And like, it wasn't calculating out the way I thought it should. So I decided just to sort of clean slate everything and start from scratch.
yeah,
And that was a little scary at first.
yeah. I feel like when you go into your sort of like spiritual journey, it can be quite scary just taking that first sort of jump because you don't really know what is on the other end.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that really, and this is hindsight, like I can speak about this more clearly now than I was like in the thick of it, right? But
Yeah,
because I was like detaching myself from all of these external sources of information, and I was really kind of just like almost isolating myself from any of that so that I could listen to myself, so that I could start this clean slate or this clear canvas with my own composition rather than input from others. It felt scary because all these communities and these support systems that I had leaned on, not saying they were all bad by any means. Everything that I've gathered from everyone in my life, again, learning, right? They're giving me pieces of learning. But when I sort of stepped away from all of that, it felt very uncomfortable. I felt like I was putting myself in a situation to be very vulnerable, to be judged, to be I felt almost like an outsider because I was like separating myself from the herd, right? And so it felt kind of scary, but freeing at the same time. Does that make sense?
yeah, totally. Yeah. So the next question would be, what was the sort of turning point? Obviously, you said that you tried different things. Like, what was the turning point for you where you decided I need to do something that's suitable for me?
It's humbling to answer this question. I'll be very straight with you. I I am kind of a master of none when it comes to jobs, right? Like I have so many skill sets in so many different areas that I feel like it makes me very valuable. I hadn't quite found like that one solid career that was really filling my cup, and I was frustrated there. I also was currently in my third marriage, and it wasn't working out. And I was like, okay, what with this like recipe of life? I'm following all the directions. I've got all the ingredients. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, and it's still not working for me. That's when I was like, all right, either I'm broken or I'm doing something wrong. Right? Because I was following someone else's instruction sheet rather than creating my own. And that's turning point for me where I was like, this is the third time I'm trying this. I still haven't found the job I love. I'm missing that like piece of happiness that I know is out there.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure how to find it. And that was the moment where I was just like, I really did kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. I was like throw everything off the table, like start from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to people who are trying to find their own path? Like, obviously, it can be quite hard when you're sort of trying different things and they just don't work out. So, like, what sort of reassurances would you give to people on that sort of trajectory?
Absolutely. Step one that I would encourage people and challenge people to do is probably the thing that was the biggest aha moment for me in my journey. And that was literally doing what I like to call a deep dive detox or a digital detox. I know a lot of people talk about it, but there is no better way than like weaning yourself off of this information overload that we experience on the daily. So, what this challenge involves is no social media, right? No doom scrolling, none of that. No television, no music with lyrics, right? And you're like, no news, no nothing, right? Like you can obviously still message and email your friends and family, like stay in touch. We're not saying like disconnect yourself from the world entirely, but anything that is an input, you're doing an input inventory, is what I go through kind of a process with some of my clients in my program. Is you're basically taking inventory of everything that you're allowing to have an input or a say in your world.
Hmm.
Because guess what? As we've learned to not trust ourselves. And when you cut all of that off and you just learn to figure it out, that's where you begin to trust your own intuition. You begin to trust your own inner knowing and your own inner wisdom. Because guess what? Even my own mother doesn't know me as well as I know me.
Yeah.
And I think I know my daughter really well. She knows herself better than I know her. So if I can tell her, hey, if you go outside and get some fresh air, it's really going to help your mood. Maybe that won't help her mood. Maybe she needs to turn on some like jam out music and just be in her own zone, right? Like we know our own selves, all of our own answers are here. So that digital detox, cutting off that information overload, 7 days, 7 days, 1 week. I swear on my life, you'll come out a changed person on the other side.
Yeah, that's kind of really interesting. I think nowadays, because there's so much information out there, it can be sometimes quite hard to sort of calm the mind and actually listen to what is going on inside you, because we've got all this information, social media, news, everything just completely getting bombarded. And I think sometimes that can be probably quite confusing for people.
Absolutely, especially because our minds, the way our conscious and our unconscious minds work, is a lot of times they actually don't know the difference between what's real and what's not. And that's why a lot of people will turn to affirmations and manifestations, is because the moment you put that into effect, like the moment, and that's the other thing that's sad about the way our brains work, is if you tell yourself, oh, I'm horrible, then your brain's going to start looking for all the evidence to validate that, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I failed. Let me look for all of that evidence. So, as someone's telling you, no, if you want to have a healthy lifestyle, you need to do XYZ. Well, guess what? Maybe that doesn't work for me. Maybe that doesn't work for who I am as a person or my human designer or whatever. So that's the overwhelm where it's like a spinning cycle of just reach out and grab whatever information you think might work, but really it may not be for you.
Yeah, definitely. Which leads us on to our next question very nicely. How do you know what is right for you? Like, how would you be able to sort of like work that out? Is it like a feeling or what?
That's such a good question. And I actually get this a lot from my clients. A couple of things I'll just toss out there. Now, one really cool technique that I encourage people to dive into is muscle testing, where you learn to communicate with your body, but that is kind of a next level practice. So let's take it back a step to more of kind of like a beginner step one. The biggest thing is just like all of us kind of have this like gut feeling, right? Like, ooh, I don't know if I should walk down that dark alley, or that looks like it's going to rain, right? Like we just kind of like you kind of have this feeling, right? Based upon the way you are absorbing things from the world. And I think it's really important to just remember that the first thing you think in that first 3 seconds of that, and like someone asks you a question, hey, how do you feel about, traveling to Europe? Or how do you feel about taking this new job? The first 3 seconds, the feeling that you have, that's your intuition. After that 3 seconds is where your mind takes over and starts to convince yourself of something else, or your logic takes over, or your fear takes over. So being very specific about answering quickly, even if it's, so let's say you're having a conversation with a best friend, right? And you're discussing a very important decision or something with them. Ask them to remind you, what did I say to you right in the beginning when you asked me that question? Ask yourself a question, write the answer down immediately. Don't stop and think about it. Learn to acknowledge your intuition and know that it's there. And just trust yourself. Like you have to learn to just trust yourself. In there, it's there.
Yeah. I always sometimes if I'm making a decision, I always go with the first thing that comes to my mind, because obviously that's your intuition. what you're sort of drawn to. And obviously, sometimes you're like, am I doing the right thing? But I'm sort of like, I'm just going to go with it because that is the first thing that came to mind, which is clearly something that's sort of dragging me towards that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people will get a little bit confused between excitement and fear.
Yeah,
Because if you're excited about it, that's a good thing. And if you're excited, nervous, that's a good thing. If you're excited, ooh, this is going to push me out of my comfort zone, that's a good thing.
yeah,
If you have fear overtaking, then you've probably missed your intuition window and your logical brain is taking over.
yeah. Because I think it's kind of, if you're like nervous, nerves don't necessarily have to be fear based. It can be excitement. And I think, in today's society, we often sort of hear nerves as being a sort of fear based. And I think that's where sometimes people might get confused between being excited or being fear.
I got some of the best advice. One of the first times I did a public speaking event, I was talking to one of my close friends who was also speaking there, and I said, I feel a little nervous about it. And so she was asking me some questions, and she said, you need to understand that the nervousness that you're feeling is because you are so passionate about this. It's not fear nerves, it's excited nerves. And the passion that you feel about something can look a lot like fear.
Yeah.
So again, just really listening to yourself is, I don't know, that was some of the best advice. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's right, I'm leading with my passion, and I'm not afraid, because I'm not scared I'm going to do a bad job. I'm just so excited to be doing it.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's probably trying to like kind of guess what it is and in that moment, because sometimes depending on the sort of environment that you're in, you might think that it's fear because it might be like a pressured environment. You might be doing something that's huge, but in reality, you might just be excited because you're passionate about doing it.
Exactly.
Okay, so next question: how can someone improve their inner wisdom? It's kind of touched a little bit on it regarding like their intuition and stuff, but more specifically your inner wisdom.
This is such a good question as well. And to me, this is just a little bit of a deeper dive. And this is what
Yeah.
I love to have my clients do. So, for example, if you were to make a list of the things that that might bring happiness into your life, right? So let's say, if I'm doing a good job at work, that's going to make me feel happy. If my kids are happy, I'm happy. If I'm getting a workout in every day, that makes me feel happy. So you write down this list of things, right? And once you write that down, it's like I like to call them your happiness contributors. And then once you have that list written down, I want you to go back and look through and determine whether these are external contributors or internal. So, for example, if one of mine was, if my boss tells me I'm doing a good job at work, that makes me feel happy. Okay, well, I'm relying upon him to give me that dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
And that's an external catalyst. And therefore, that is not me knowing what makes me happy that I have control over. So I want to try to, like, again, work myself away from needing those kinds of things. And the more you take those things away out of the picture, the more you start to realize the things that you have control of that make you happy, that help you learn about yourself. And we change through life. The things that made me happy at 18 aren't the things that make me happy now. Like, it's just different and it changes. So we have to make sure we're giving ourselves the space to kind of do those big picture check-ins with ourselves to
Yeah.
make sure that we are actually staying in alignment.
Yeah, definitely. And like something you sort of touched upon there was like when obviously we're going to change for our life. And something I always say is like, if you have to change, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's a natural thing of life. And it's just sort of trying to adjust to this new version of you in many ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. The the constant evolution that I know I've even been through in life is crazy. And I feel like sometimes it's 5 steps forward and 2 steps back, and onward. And that's just life. We're here to learn. Like, we're here to figure it out, right?
It's just like a roller coaster. It's just up and down. And that's, you've got to accept that as that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, hold on tight, arms up, scream.
Yeah. Who if you want to go faster. um, so my next question is kind of like a quite a longer one, but like, what advice would you give to someone who, they might be listening right now and they might be thinking, I found the thing I'm passionate about, but it just might not seem, I don't know, financially viable, or there might be people who might not agree with them doing that sort of thing. What advice would you give to people like that in that situation?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot. Do you know why? Because I'm in this situation currently. Um, there's, hopes and dreams that I have that I feel like, oh, I can't do that yet. Like I need to, stay where I'm at, so that I have the financial stability, got to be responsible, can't take a leap of faith, right? These are all the obstacles and all
Yeah,
of the objections that we put in our own way. And the bottom line is this, and it comes back to trusting in yourself, because if it's a desire that you have in your heart, it's meant for you.
mhm.
You're not going to have a desire in your heart that isn't something you can achieve. Maybe the timeline isn't exactly what you want. Like, say someone wants to change careers, it may not happen next week.
Yeah,
But the more you just take steps towards that every time and you keep that positive momentum in your mentality and in your thoughts, that will come to fruition because you're meant for it. Some people don't subscribe to destiny, and that's kind of a tricky word, but
yeah,
if it the desire is on your heart, it can and will be yours as long as you're willing to trust.
yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like one of the reasons I wanted to ask that is I'm sort of in that situation as well, and I just sort of kind of selfishly was like thinking maybe I should pop that in there just to see like what your advice would be. Even and the thing is as well, like even whatever we're going through, there's going to be someone else who'll be probably going through the same thing as well. So whoever is listening to this will no doubt be going through what we're kind of going through as well. And I just thought it'd be good to have that question in there. And talking about your book, you recently wrote The Renewal of You, which came out last year. All right. Um,
That's correct.
so what inspired you to write this, and give us some like teasers as to what it goes into?
Absolutely. Um, for a long time, during my personal kind of discovery journey, I felt like, holy crap, I wish someone would have told me that sooner, or I wish I would have known about that sooner. So I kind of started compiling some ideas of like, maybe I could share some of this with other people and it might help them. And so I just kind of started, thinking about maybe someone might want to hear my message. And I never really did much about it until in this weird freak accident when I was playing soccer with friends, I broke my hand. And so I couldn't do a lot of the like normal activities that I would do. I was, hanging out around the house a little more. And so I just started writing. I
Hmm.
started writing and started writing. And it just sort of all came together. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to write it. I'm not actually really going to do anything with it. And then I sent it to a couple of people to read, and their response, I was having a lot of imposter syndrome. I'll just be very transparent. I was like, who am I to tell people what to do?
Yeah.
Who am I? And their response to my message was so heartwarming. And I thought, you know what? If I could even just help one person by putting this message out there, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
So I went for it and got the book published. And really what it is it's kind of like a beginner's guide to everything we've been talking about today, as far as stepping away from the external, learning how to understand your own inner compass.
Hmm.
And it even goes so far as to give you some tangible steps for like maybe your daily routines, and some tangible processes to work through to help you get to a point where you can listen to your own inner knowing. Because the bottom line is this, and it's the exact title of the book, is it's just the renewal of you. Nobody needs to change who they are for anything. You are completely worthy and completely whole and completely amazing as you are right now. And
Yeah.
there's a very unique analogy at the very end of the book that basically just says, and I won't spoil the whole thing, but sometimes we just get covered up by layers of crap that we've been through in life or layers of expectations that other people have put on us. And once we can peel those things away and let our true self shine through, that's actually where pure joy and fulfillment in life comes in. You have to peel off the layers.
Yeah, that's kind of one way I sort of think about spirituality in a way. Like it's sort of my view is almost like spirituality is kind of like looking within yourself and sort of peeling back different layers to find who you are on the deepest sort of level, if you will. So it's kind of similar sort of thing.
Yeah, and it can be a really big deep dive. I struggled with the idea of spirituality when I walked away from the religion that I had been raised in because I tied the two together.
Yeah,
And as soon as I realized that, I had this piece of my world that was religion and spirituality tied together. And when I left one, I kind of thought the other one was going with it. And with some major encouragement from my therapist at the time, actually, she's like, "You need a spiritual practice. You need a spiritual practice." And I was like, "No, I don't. No, I don't." And then I finally dove back into one, and it was a game changer for me because it did allow me that extra like power almost to turn inward. And it's a beautiful thing, and it can be unique for everyone. I think that's why I love spirituality, because you can make it your own.
yeah, that's what I think as well. So, like, do you think, obviously, some people might not think spirituality and religion can sort of coexist, but do you think they can sort of come together?
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like religion can be a framework. Um, but inside of that, your spiritual journey is your own. So they can either exist together or they can exist separately. And what your feelings of spirituality are can be very different from someone else's, even if you're both adhering to the same religion. It can be very different. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I agree. Because like spirituality is it's just sort of because we're so unique in our own sort of individual ways, we've got to sort of figure out what our own spirituality is to sort of meet our own sort of needs and like sort of experiences. Because some people might have different experiences, and because of that, we'll have to have different spiritual practices, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of feel like it's, when you're young, you need kind of the guidance of your parents, and maybe you sort of follow along with um, my parents like to go hiking, so I guess I like to go hiking or something like that, right? Like you kind of follow their coattails for a while until you gain enough experience and strength and freedom. Maybe, over here we get our licenses at 16. I'm not sure about you guys, but you have that freedom to go do what you want to do. And maybe you don't like hiking anymore. Maybe you prefer going to the lake. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, we all get to make our choices, right? As we start to gain enough experience to have that, I guess, full awareness.
yeah, 100%. Um, so a next question, which might be another quite deep one, is what do you wish you had known in the past that you know now?
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
a good one. I wish that I would have realized at a younger age that my worth is not determined by the praise given to me by others. I lived a lot of my life just trying to please everybody else and get that, I mentioned it earlier, get that kind of dopamine hit or that ego boost from other people telling me what a good job I did or what a nice kid I was or how, great I weeded the flower bed or whatever. Um, and that was the chase. I became that gold star chaser, and that's all I ever did. And really the hindsight of that for me is not learning to love myself for who I was earlier in life so that I could give myself those gold stars
Yeah,
rather than needing them from everybody else around me.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I feel like sometimes nowadays with like social media and stuff, a lot of people sort of seek the validation from others. But I do feel like we're sort of moving away from that, and a lot of people are sort of, you know, seeking that internal validation from themselves, which is a good. I think it's quite good to see that sort of change.
Absolutely. It's been a huge eye opener for me, especially the age that my daughter is moving into. She does not have social media. I don't allow her to have social media yet. I feel like she's too young, but understanding what she could be up against later,
Yeah,
I'm really focusing on trying to help her understand to, be your own person. You don't need to be a follower. Like if you feel good about it, that's all that matters. Because it's a crazy world out there full of all kinds of
yeah,
information and misinformation.
yeah, definitely. And the thing is, as well, like one thing I always say is, if you sort of be your true self, it might seem lonely at first, but you're going to attract all the right people, and you're sort of your sort of people for being you, because the right people are going to like you for who you are.
Yeah, you've probably heard that saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. I love
Yeah.
that one.
Oh yeah, me too. Okay, so next question: what does spirituality mean to you? We've kind of sort of went a little bit over that, but like again, what would you
Yeah,
say?
absolutely. To me, spirituality is basically just my connection to a higher power. A lot of people assimilate that to God or the universe or source or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter to me. It's just my connection with that higher power or my higher self. And to me, that's a guiding force that allows me to feel held kind of by my own spiritual power,
Mhm.
um, without having to rely on something else. And it also, for me, it involves a lot of rituals. And I am careful to use that word, but for me, like a ritual is just at night, I take time, to settle myself, think about my thoughts, maybe meditate, stretch, and then journal. Even a lot of times in the mornings, I have a ritual where I will write down all the things that I'm grateful for so that I can start the day with a gratitude mindset. And then I also write down my goals so that I know where my focus is for the day. And then I tap into to that higher self, that higher power, just knowing that, you know what, I'm not alone. I've got this. I have this support system, whether you believe in, God or spirit guides or whatever. That's what spirituality is to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously here is the Mindset Project podcast, which we're sort of exploring different mindsets, perspectives. So, what does mindset mean to you?
Mm, I love this question so much. Mindset to me is basically, I mean, where your focus goes, your energy goes, right? So if I'm looking behind me at my past, looking at all the quote unquote mistakes I made, right? My focus is going to be on that, and I'm not going to have a lot of forward momentum in my life. So my mindset to me is basically your navigation system for your life. It's giving you that ability to see, okay, where are we headed today? Where are we headed this week? Where are we headed this year? Where are we headed the next 5 years? It's your navigation system. And if you don't keep it dialed in and you don't keep it on track, you're going to end up in a whole different place than you really wanted to be.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. So that's kind of us came to all the questions I had and wanted to cover, and I feel like we kind of went into a lot of detail, and really grateful that you came on. Is there anything that you want to add? Any where can people find you on social media or websites,
Yeah,
etc.?
yeah, absolutely. I just first of all, I want to say thank you again so much for having me. I hope, we were able to provide some insights or awareness for your listeners. But yeah, if anyone is interested, you can find me on Instagram. It's the.renewal.u, or excuse me, the.renewal.of.u. Also, my website is therenewalofu.com. Love to connect with people. Connections are my favorite. I
Yeah.
love just meeting new people and staying in touch and hearing about their journeys. And it's kind of my lifeblood.
Yeah, this is why I love doing the podcast, because I can connect with different people, like learn about different people, and just sort of bounce off each other. So I'm kind of,
It's awesome.
yeah, I feel like we've sort of attracted each other. I feel like we're very kind of similar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's weird.
Our vibe attracted our tribe. Lewis, we
Definitely.
got it.
Yeah, the universe, they're watching.
Yes, they are. But it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so
You're,
much.
you're very welcome. I'm so grateful that you came on as well. Um, so I hope you have a great day over in the US. I think it's like 10 o'clock now, 9 o'clock.
Not yep, 9:30 in the morning. And
Yeah,
you're winding down your day, right?
getting ready for dinner. Yeah, so
Awesome.
thank you again for
Well,
coming
enjoy
on.
your evening.
You too.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
So I really hope that you enjoyed that episode, and I kind of hope that it sort of inspired you to really question what it is that actually makes you happy and feel fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, life is far too short to be doing something because, you know, society tells you says you have to, or because your parents have this idea of what they think might be success, or whatever. You need to do what inspires you and makes you happy. That is, you know, the ultimate goal in life. And that's how you truly step into your own power and, you know, take control of your own life. And if you are in a position where you want to do something, but it just doesn't seem financially viable, or there might be a lot of criticism from your peers, your friends, your family, whatever, just know that if it is truly meant for you, it will work out, even though it might not seem like that at this present moment. All the doors will eventually open up because you are aligned to do that. There's something, like we sort of discussed in that episode, is if there's something in your heart that is, you know, sort of gravitating you towards this thing, then that's something that's meant for you. And this feeling that you are feeling, it's your gut, and it's your gut communicating you or telling something to you that you have to do that, and you need to listen to that. And obviously Erika gave us some exercises to do which might help us try and sort of work out these things and sort of work on our inner wisdom. And remember, Erika is a coach as well, so if you want to work with her or have any questions, then definitely go over to our website, give her an email or Instagram, and just give her a message. And as always, I will put all of those details in the description on YouTube, in the description on Spotify. Obviously, if she follows on Instagram as well, you can find her from there, because I'll tag her into all the sort of social media posts. And this won't be the last time that I sort of explore this topic. There will 100% be more episodes to come on this for sure. So again, I really hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did, and I just think Erika is a very sort of endearing speaker. She's just one of those people who has one of those really sort of soft, calming tones that sort of draws you in, and that's one of the reasons why I like Erika as a speaker. And I'm so grateful that I actually had that opportunity to get her on here and do an episode for you guys listening wherever you are. So that's all I'm going to say for this outro. So with that, stay safe, stay positive, and I shall see you on the next one.